Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
And welcome to our live studio audience for another exciting edition of Did You Know? And here we go with round one. Did you know?
The COVID vaccine is free and easy to get. You don't need insurance or an appointment to get your vaccine. Vaccines are available at many locations near you.
And now we're going to double the value. Did you know?
The COVID-19 vaccine is always free of cost. You can visit pharmacies, community health centers, and other health providers in your neighborhood.
And now for the lightning round. Did you know?
The Delta variant of COVID is a mutation that has health experts worried because it's twice as contagious.
Then for our finale. Did you know?
The best way to protect yourself from the COVID Delta variant is to get fully vaccinated. Get your vaccine today.
Find out more at kingcounty.gov/vaccine. Did you know?
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe King. And we host the show Little Line Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Little Line Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Kind of nonsense conversation we're having here.
The Neon Ghost Show. The Neon Ghost Show. Right here on Rainier Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Right about now.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I'm so tired. I have to pee.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African-American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world is your 24/7 digital media hub. Tune in at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TuneIn apps.
All right, we are back. That's right. Seattle Sports Weekly is back on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, and I am your host, Mazvita Maraire, and it is high noon. And so, it's been a minute, and no offense to y'all, but it's just moved the schedule around. In fact, we weren't even going to come back until the somewhere in the holidays, and the reason is it's just there's just so much sports, right? So who is this guy? But so this whole thing about we're gathering the info. Is that more important to get in this, what Seahawks practices and all those things, usually Thursdays, or is it more important to get the information out? So I've been able to kind of juggle both, right? So, we're back to kind of I don't think we'll be back next. We're going to take off next Thursday. D Money's going, what? Just because, so we'll get back to our rotation here. And we're not going anywhere. And in fact, we're coming back. Not only are we coming back on the show, but we were in Munich for the Seahawks game. Went out there and then took the train over to Paris a little bit. And this isn't a flex, but it's just, where y'all been. So that's that. And then, of course, stopped off at Istanbul and came back. And you probably hear more in terms of what was the Munich game like. It was fantastic because what you had was the NFL experience, NFL taking the football professional level to play in Munich, FC Barcelona, FC Bayern Munich. And yes, I have the World Cup on my in my mind, and we'll talk World Cup in a minute when Peter Hattrup joins us. But we'll go over that. But yeah, so it was great. It was played in Bayern Munich is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and so this amazing stadium. And it was an experience. So the press box was actually outside, which is what they do in Europe. So that was kind of a fun experience. And the Seahawks lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that snapped a 4-game win streak. And the Buccaneers exposed the Seahawks' inability to run. And boy, did they. And so the Las Vegas Raiders did the same thing last week here. Somehow the Seahawks regressed in terms of their ability to stop the run. And you're asking, well, what's going on? Well, talking to Pete and what he has to say, and Clint Hurt, all of those in terms of what happened, because for a while there, right, they couldn't stop anybody they beat the Broncos. Then they went, win, loss, couldn't stop the run. So they changed their defensive scheme a little bit. So they had 4 players on the D line, right? And then your edge rushers. And so those 4 players were able to get in the gaps, making an impact, push the offensive line back. So there you had pressure on the run and on the pass. But against the Buccaneers, the Seahawks they had 5. Seahawks went to a 4-man line, and they just couldn't. And the reason why they did that was when you have a quarterback that can get the ball out very quickly, like Tom Brady, what you're trying to do is get your fastest defensive line, and you're trying to get them off the blocks and put some pressure. And so when you go to the 4-man front and you take out that 5th person that's clogging up the defensive line, well, it's advantage to not only the quarterback with the quick release, but also the offensive line. So you've got, your center. So you've got 5 blocking on 4, that being the center, the 2 guards, your 2 tackles blocking your nose tackle, your 2 tackles, and maybe you bring in your edge rusher in. So, and then if you are the offense, then you bring in a fullback to block for the running back. It's a no contest for the defense. So that's what's been happening a little bit. And part of the Seahawks issues, their inability they regressed. So the D-line couldn't get off the blocks. The linebackers came up, but in their run fits, that is, the gap they're supposed to go, because it was clogged up. Many a times they would go to the wrong gap, and then the running back would come and, would start in the A gap, they call it, and then he would turn back and find an open hole because the linebacker or the D linemen were just taking up, the A gap, but the play was open to the outside off the tackles. Well, all right, so then you adjust and you say, all right, let's try to expand our line. When you go off tackle, that is, you're now bringing your edge rushers in. Well, you're middle. It's acceptable to the middle of the pack. The middle of your defense is wide open. And so that's what's been the problem. And they got to get it right. And this week, I actually think this is the biggest game of the season. They should beat the Rams. They've had issues beating the LA Rams. So Bobby Wagner is there. Revenge game for him. Pete talked about that on Monday. And so, man, In the last 5 games, the Seahawks have won just one. The last time the Seahawks won was December 27, 2020 against the Rams. And the last 2 have been losses. And Sean McVay has Pete Carroll's number, but this is the week they have to do it, not only because the Seahawks have to snap the 2-game losing streak, but also there's no Aaron Donald. There's no Matthew Stafford. So if you're going to do it, this is the game you need in so many ways. And oh, by the way, the LA Rams has the 4th best rush defense in the league. So it's going to be, tough sledding, if you will. And that's just, but that is the NFL. That absolutely is how the NFL goes. And each week's a different challenge. So kind of transition to the World Cup here. I know y'all have been watching it. My tirade a little bit on the World Cup. The beauty of, soccer's called the beautiful game, right? Because it's so, when it's played simply, it's beautiful. Just almost like any other sport. But I think soccer players just say it's a beautiful game because it's like basketball as well, though, to a certain extent. If you think back when the Lakers had the Showtime, the way they were able to, Michael Cooper, get that rebound, the transition, and get down court with Magic, that was beautiful, right? That's what Showtime came from. And same thing with the beautiful game. When you get teams passing it with a purpose and runners running in and out of the box, and then there's that pass, and then there's that shot that just is so clean, sweet, and beats that keeper. It's like a dance, and that's where my version of beautiful game is. But this World Cup off the field, there's just too much journalists paying too much attention or making their own righteous protest about what's happening in Qatar. Look, you knew all these atrocious things that were going on in Qatar. You knew that. So then boycott the game. But don't go there and say, I'm going to go and watch the game. And then suddenly you see that game. And then, hold on one second, you guys. Hold on one second. Well, you know what? The commercial there that came up, you got to have it your way, I guess. But the point is, you can't have it your way. That's the whole point, is you can't do that in terms of your protest. You're mixing the two. Yeah, you write about it before the game, and you might do something to say, hey, we're here. Here's what's going on. But there were some journalists that went and wore these protest shirts when they were told don't. So now it's about you. If your organization did not want to cover the World Cup and we get it. The human rights atrocities that happen in Qatar, we get that. And they're ongoing. But oh, by the way, that's what's wrong with our world, right? No country is clean. None. And so does that mean, where were you all when Germany held the World Cup? I mean, did we say bad things about Germany because of the past transgressions? Nah, the beautiful game, the soccer, the World Cup is a beautiful celebration of cultures, of bringing people together and pointing out how we're more similar than we are different. And Exhibit A is that 11 on 11 on the field. So I'm going to bring in Peter Hattrup. He is our soccer, he's a U.S. men's national, and he's also a, U.S. soccer legend. So, Peter, I went on my tirade. Peter's going to be on the phone. What's your thought? Let's just start with kind of the protest. And there he is. What's your thought on that? And then we can get to really, on the field and the fun stuff.
Well, hopefully you can hear me. You hear me okay there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good. I think your point's valid. It's reporters are supposed to be reporting the news, not trying to become the news. So if they're reporting on what they see,
Hold on. He's coming on. Pete's working on there you go.
Had to mute my spam call. But if they're reporting on what they see and what's going on around them, fair enough. But like you said, if they're trying to become part of the story, that's kind of not their job. The reports and like you say, the atrocities are an issue. Let's be honest. We all knew there was a problem with this whole World Cup, from the timing of it to the infrastructure and everything else from the time they awarded it. I think 12 years ago now,
right?
2010. And now we're here. It's time to talk about the games, we could debate that for as long as we want, but like I said, it's game time now, which I can't believe you've got me on during this game going on right now. Japan has just taken the league against Spain.
Oh, no way.
And thrown that group into a disarray. So the Germans aren't going to be too happy about that. So it's been an amazing World Cup so far. It has been full of surprises, full of drama, and that makes the game interesting and keeps people involved for a long time.
All right, let's go right there while you're. Remember, we only got you until the half hour, so thank you. But we're able to at least get you for a little bit. But surprises. Or you can start with this game here, but because I always thought the Japan and Germany game. I thought for me the Japan and Spain game was interesting, but your surprises takes.
Well, the interesting thing for me is looking at it going in, I thought the big guns would have an easier time because without everybody having extensive training camps to prepare, you would think that the talent would take over. And I gave a lot of thought about that as I was out walking today with the dog and thinking, wait a minute, some of these countries don't have a lot of European-based players. Some of the ones that have been pulling off the big surprises, they've been in camp together. They've been training together. So maybe it's been a disadvantage. And now you start to see, Argentina's all of a sudden gone from losing to Saudi Arabia in a big upset. Okay, now they've kind of righted the ship and it's back to normal. But, I thought we'd kind of have status quo, and that got thrown out right away. And, if it's your country you're rooting for, it's traumatic, but for all the neutrals, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, Germany won, Costa Rica won.
Well, Costa Rica's tied it up now too. So some of the parity has gotten a lot closer. The days of we would say the days of people running up funny scores is over, except Spain put up 7 against Costa Rica, who then went on to beat Japan. And now Costa Rica is tying Germany. So the one thing we have learned is comparative scores are worth nothing. It doesn't matter what they did against somebody else.
Peter, in terms of, do you think the youth, is age playing a part in this? Was some of these other teams younger? I know there's that talk around Belgium that, they were, they're one of the oldest teams and they kind of fell victim to that. Is that part of the equation we're seeing here?
Well, I think you're seeing the teams that haven't mixed it and brought in youth into it are struggling. But, I say that right now, and Spain's got some of the youngest players in the tournament out there. And now they're struggling. Belgium, maybe they missed the window, but if Lukaku is healthy and scoring goals instead of injured and then missing goals, maybe they win their games. Canada's got a really young team. It didn't go so well for them. So it's not just about youth, it's about quality. Either your star players need to be on the younger side, or your younger players need to be able to prop up your older players and help them. You see with, Messi, who I still think is this has got unbelievable quality, but he misses a penalty the other day. But the young players stepped up and made a difference. Players that haven't previously done well for them. So, McAllister scored his first ever national team goal to get them running in that game. So you're going to need some of those young players to step up and augment your older players. They bring the quality, but somebody needs to bring the legs as well.
Yeah, that really is kind of the mixture that's there. What's your take on Mexico crashing out?
I'm not sure why anybody was surprised. They didn't look great in qualifying. They qualified, but they didn't look great. They didn't have great results over last summer. They've been in, we have people complaining about the selections going into the U.S. and who didn't make it. They had arguably two of their most likely goal scorers, Chicharito and Vela, having no part in it. So, and they couldn't score until the last game. They no goals in the first two games. So, we might bemoan not having a classic number 9, but maybe they're harder to find than we think, because Mexico didn't seem to have one. Belgium sure missed not having one for most of their games, and then when he was on, he couldn't get going. But it's been a tough year for Mexico. If you look at they didn't do well in the Nations Cup. They lost the final. They lost the last CONCACAF Gold Cup. On the club scene, they lose the Champions League for the first time to the Sounders. It's they may need a little reboot as well.
Yeah, it sure seems like the key here is the coach knowing his players. Like you said, whether it's that mixture of, the young and how to play them, or the young guys that, getting the best out of your young and the older ones, or, journeyman, whatever that is, and also knowing the style of play. Going to the U.S., I thought that Burkhalter knew his team early on. And during qualifier, and I think that was a bonus. During qualifier, he was kind of looking at, okay, I know what I have here. Let me play these players just to make sure I have it. I credit him for knowing his team, how they play, and just and the right strategy. What's your thoughts on Burkhalter and just what he's done?
Well, I think he takes a lot of criticism that some is not warranted. There's some of his decisions you can question, of course. I could do the same in any country in the world. You could look and go, oh, what about this guy? What about that guy? And yet, for people that complain that he ignores certain things, he was willing at the last minute to make a change. And Tim Ream, who had not been in the team for a while, but was doing his job someplace else, and he could monitor him. Well, he thought he was the best option, and he's been fantastic for 3 games, left center back. Walker Zimmerman, who's been his guy, and he's stuck by him. Well, all of a sudden, he thought he had a little bit of a tough time, and he was willing to make a change and go with Carter Vickers. It's not so easy. Everyone's moaning about Reyna. None of us are in camp. None of us know what's going on behind the closed doors. So to be overly critical, he qualified. We didn't qualify last World Cup. He's gotten us through into the knockout stages. And I think we've got more than a fighting chance against the Dutch. I think that's going to be a heck of a game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us get a result.
How do you get a result against the Dutch? Because that's, a pretty decent team.
Yeah, but they're in some ways methodical enough that I think the teams that are really quick on the break are harder for the U.S. to deal with. I think, they're organized defensively. Tyler Adams is having a great World Cup. The question is, sometimes you say, well, can we score? Well, we might not need to score. If you look at it that way, you could not score and still go advance at this point, because if you defend well, and they've defended really well, they've only given up the one goal in 3 games, and that was, 2 goals, but one was I go back. I'm right. It was 1 goal. They gave up the penalty, which they, is a mistake, but the Dutch have to come out and play. At some point, in the way they play, they're willing to send players forward. They'll make some gaps eventually, and maybe this is the game that Reina is unleashed against a team that gives you room to play a little bit, because the Dutch will let you play.
Yeah, they, fair enough, right? But Memphis to pay, Frankie de Jong, I think, it'd be interesting. I think this would be a very, I would go down the list, but I do think they're a little bit slow, but the Dutch, to your point, and it might be a defensive game, but I think the U.S. is one of, I think they're one of the quickest, fastest teams, and I know they're the youngest in the World Cup. I think this is just the beginning of, the Yankees just showing what, their speed and quickness for me. And hopefully it might manifest on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up a Johan Cruyff fan, so the Dutch have a special place in my soccer heart, but I don't see, this is not a great Dutch team. It's a good Dutch team, but this is not Van Basten and Hullet and Rijkaard. This is not Bergkamp. Memphis Depay doesn't even get a game for his club team right now. And they're trying to work him into shape. To be honest, he hasn't been playing a full match yet. The young kid, Gapco, is the one that's been fantastic so far. So, we'll see what he can bring to it. Can you concentrate against the Dutch for the full game is the hard thing, because they will probe and test and try you, but they won't just overwhelm you. There's not somebody just taking people on and beating them over and over again individually. There's not someone running in behind consistently. So if you can stay organized and stay focused, and I think the U.S. has done a good job of that for the most part. Like I said, I'm not guaranteeing a win, but I think they definitely got a decent chance.
Yeah, you got a good point in terms of this is not like the U.S. This is not the Dutch of. Well, you just named off some of the Mount Rushmore players, play for the Dutch. They help create the game. So I think it'll be an interesting game. I'm going to shift a little bit. We got about 3 minutes. Sounders, Craig Weibel. Thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. I think Garth did a great job when he was here, but I also think he kind of reached where he wanted to. I think that Champions League was his target, and I think he got to it. And now he wants different challenges, which is good for him. And I think sometimes you need a freshening up. Everyone complains when you just keep doing what we're doing the same thing. Well, now it's somebody different, somebody that knows the league well, somebody that's done well. He's got great ties from this area. I've known Craig since he was a Northwest soccer camper. Same place I first met Casey Keller and Chris Henderson, so that goes back a long ways. So, I think he'll do a great job. I think he's super invested in Seattle and Seattle soccer. And, where Garth came in here as taking a job and did a great job. Craig comes in as part of this culture, and it's part of his background. His first pro team was the old A-League Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That's where he started. And, before that it was the UW. So I think he's invested in Seattle as a city and a club in a way that in some ways Garth couldn't be. And that's not a knock on Garth. Like I said, he did a great job, but Craig's one of us, like Brian's one of us. And I think, I think he's going to do a great job.
Yeah. And to your point, Garth had said that always, the vibe I get, the good vibe I get here is because, Craig reminds me of, I get the same vibe when you stand around him that John Schneider, almost kind of a goofy, but invested and really likes, he just wants to be a regular person, but he's smart as heck. My only precaution with the Sounders, look, you got, and I asked Craig this yesterday, right? You got Apple with the, exposure, the deal for the MLS. Messi's coming into play in the MLS. I want to see some money spent. I need Adrian Hanauer to spend some money. Where I've always said this, where's the money? Show me the money.
Yeah. Well, the question, like everyone says, Garth couldn't spend Adrian's money any more than Craig can spend Adrian's money. So
I know.
And anybody going to get him going? Maybe. Let's pump the brakes on Messi coming. I've also heard PSG's renewing him for 2 more years, and he's going to Barcelona. And so until he actually signs a contract, I'm not buying it. I think, who can they find? Do they need somebody? Yeah, they need somebody, but maybe it's somebody that is not a big name for us right now. When Ladero came, he was not a big name for us. No one knew who he was. Let's be honest. And all of a sudden, he helped turn the club around. So can they find somebody like that? Because I don't think they have the $1 million a week to pay Messi. But can they find somebody for $10 million that might be a game changer? Why not?
Good points. Yeah, I asked Craig yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, we'll bring in." He's looking at a couple of players, and I flat out said, "Are they in the quarterfinals of the World Cup?" And he said, "Not yet." But a good GM is always smart and knows how to kind of tongue in cheek. All right, we got to go, Legend. Thank you for hopping on as always. I know you get to go back and see the last of these games and see how this shape up. So. Before we go, Costa Rica 2, Germany 2, Japan 2, Spain 1. Goodness. He's Peter Hattrup. He is a soccer legend, U.S. soccer legend. And now that we're back in the fold, we'll be looking to hear from you in a couple of weeks, if not sooner, Pete. Thanks very much.
Sounds good. Always a pleasure.
All right, there you go. And we're going to go on break because Scott Laigo is coming in along with Lars as well to talk, football. The other is it football? Is it soccer? Is it football? It's complicated. All right. Either way, we got to go on break. And those two gentlemen will be in. I'm Mazvita Maraire. This is Seattle Sports Weekly. We are back after the break. All right. We'll be right back.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not explaining to my intern exactly what R&B is, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This message is brought to you by Public Health, Seattle and King County, the Washington Department of Health, Washington Chapter AAP, and Within Reach. No matter where your classroom is, whether in person or online, routine vaccinations protect your child from serious diseases like measles, mumps, and chickenpox, and they keep your child safe, healthy, and thriving. Need help finding a provider? Visit parenthelp123.org or call the Help Me Grow Washington hotline at 1-800-322-2588.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the cabinets, from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Sergio LaCour's Love Lines.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go into the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince and Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Night Beat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
The beat of the Fox. K-Fox Night Beat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba. The Underground Surround Sound Start Time with Paul Pearson.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday evening sound sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
On Rainier Avenue Radio.world, look for the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and host, helping you to feel good and look good, and who wouldn't want some of that? All that and more from the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Stories, songs, and guests. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life just may be the best of your life. Hose up, baby, to your help.
Dealing with COVID-19 is uncharted territory, and everyone has different challenges. People may feel anxious, down, or overwhelmed. For some, these feelings can lead to changes in sleep patterns, an increased use of alcohol or drugs, or withdrawing from the people around them. If you know someone who's having a hard time coping, you can help by reaching out to talk and listen. To learn more about how you can help someone in need, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. Brought to you by the state of Washington.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenue.world.
All right, we are back on Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire. And there you go. Talked a little World Cup with legend Peter Hattrup. And now we're going to talk college football. And there is so many different ways to go at this, but there's a lot going on at the UW and also kind of the Pac-12. And so we're going to bring in Lars Hanson of CascadiaSports.net and Scott Laigo. And Mr. Scott Laigo is he's coming back on. He had to reboot. So Lars, man, you look kind of dark over there. What's going on?
It was actually funny. It's funny you say that. It was actually just starting until you brought me on. It was actually, I thought I was gonna have to close the blinds because it was so bright, and then I get on and now we're dark. So I don't know. My lights all the way up. I don't know. You know what? It's half and half. It's maybe 2/3 closed. I don't know. It is
all right. You know, I got to start with this zinger.
I'm the essence of white. I mean, I'm Irish, Norwegian. Like I'm so pale. It's like I kind of need the darkness to make myself look a little less white. So that way I don't blind everybody on the screen.
Nah, you all right. It's just the Northwest, our lack of vitamin D. Don't be
that too.
That's for all of us. Well, man, did you remember? I mean, how to kind of log on? It's been a minute since we've been,
Yeah, I was gonna say. Although I have been peeping up and keeping up on the show. You've had some interesting guests on, and again, I can't. First of all, we got to talk the World Cup. We got to lead with that. I mean, my hats off to Peter Hattrup. I mean, no pun intended there, but I mean, so I know when to concede my time.
Ooh, there we go. Yeah, so again, what we got? We got it's 2-2. Germany and Costa Rica. I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. Really? Costa Rica is my home away from home.
I mean, that's fair. I'd love to visit it. I just didn't see, there was nothing there that had me, any inkling. But I thought Japan would give Spain somewhat a run for their money just because of the soccer styles. You know what I mean?
Oh, no. But to your point, coming into this game, Germany didn't really give you that much, almost kind of like who's the other team? They kind of just coasted through the Netherlands. Kind of just you're coasting through. You haven't really been truly tested yet. And Costa Rica is a team where, hey, if you kind of like the U.S., if you give them an opening, if you give them a chance, they'll play up for it. They don't have the talent. They don't have the superior talent. I'm not saying they're 2-2 on talent, but give Costa Rica the opening. They got the heart for it, and just like the U.S., they'll take advantage of it if you give them the opening.
Right on. Okay, we can talk soccer all day.
Yeah, we don't.
Tell me,
you want to go back to the Apple Cup?
Well, the fact that you're here means what? Don't you normally supposed to be down there at UW doing something?
Well, the thing is, the way the Pac-12 decided to shift and get rid of the North and South. See, if the North and South divisions were still a thing, Utah and USC could not play each other in the championship game because they were both in the Southern Division. So Washington would have been the team with the next highest rate. Because again, UCLA would also be out. UW has the head-to-head with Oregon, so UW would be playing USC in the championship game had they not got rid of the divisions. So UW is sitting on the sidelines, kind of pulling for USC if they want to go to the Rose Bowl, or you pull for Utah if you want to go to San Antonio. Some of us want to go to Los Angeles.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to bring you back because, you just rambled off history, precedents, and all that. So the UW is what? They're not playing this week, and what's going on Saturday that's of significance to them?
I thought the game was on Friday, but the Pac-12
Friday. You're right.
Yeah, the Pac-12. Go figure. The Pac-12 because all the real champions play on Saturday. The Pac-12 has to get
easy. Shots fired. Easy. Go ahead.
But so the reason why UW fans want to pay attention on Friday is because if USC wins, the back up a little bit, get some more context here. The latest college football playoff rankings came out, and the natural headaches are going to be what they are for that. But the good news for the Pac-12 and especially for Washington is USC came in at number 4 at 11-1, ahead of Ohio State, behind TCU. If USC beats Utah, no matter if it's by 1, by 20, it does not matter. USC's in the playoffs. What that means, and Utah would have another loss, so the Rose Bowl would take the next highest ranked Pac-12 team. USC would be in the playoffs, so they're out of the equation. That would be Washington, who I believe came in at 12 or 13, somewhere in that range. Problem is they're getting shafted. I don't know how Kansas State's a top 10 team, but that's neither here nor there. If Utah wins, USC's not in the playoffs. UW, then the bowls kind of start to follow, and the most likely case for UW would be the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio.
Okay, and so you really think? I mean, there's this ongoing debate about that the UW should have, Utah shouldn't have moved up in front of the UW. But do you really think the UW had a realistic chance of getting in the playoffs? I mean,
no. The UW never had a shot. Even if they went 11-1, they wouldn't. UW was not making the playoffs this year, but the loss to Arizona State. I mean, here's what I don't get about that. Yes, it's a terrible loss for UW. Great, whatever. But you got teams with 3 losses ahead of a 2-loss UW team. Does that 1 loss to Arizona State really equal 2 losses in reality? No, it's only 1. But UW is getting penalized almost like that's a second. That's like they have 3 losses instead of 2. So I'm completely flabbergasted at how the rankings play out. But that's, again, we had the BCS for years where it was a computer doing all the stuff, and there's no. The key is even if in 2024 when they have the 12-team playoff, when the playoff expands from 4 to 12. That's where kind of UW gets jobbed in the scenario because UW wouldn't be in the playoff even with a 12-team playoff this year because they were 13th, I think, 13th or 14th. I can't remember which. So that's kind of where, if the committee is truly going to say, hey, we are actually taking these rankings seriously, and it's not like we're just focusing on the top 4 or maybe the top 6 and then whatever else can kind of just be opinions, be whatever. I have a hard time believing UW is not one of the top 12 teams in the country. They're not one of the top 4, but they're certainly one of the top 12. And I don't see how – if UW play Kansas State, UW is winning, and that's not even close, by 2 touchdowns at least.
All right, so let's go back a little bit. Tell me about the 12th ranked Washington Huskies.
I mean, the defense kind of found itself in the second half, and ironically, there was a press conference. I don't remember which week it was, where I asked DeBoer, what has kind of, we've all seen the statistics from Michael Penix, and he's great, and he's in passer, all that, great guy, perfect teammate, whatever. Where has he improved the most? And what struck me was he said it's not just that the offense is galvanizing, because that was kind of pretty easy. It's what he said is the defense is galvanized around him. The defense is like, hey, if Mike can keep scoring, we got to get a stop at some point here. Even no matter who we're playing, we got to get our what together. And it seemed like in the second half against Oregon State, against Washington State, the defense really, especially in the second half of games, got it together. As Washington and the offense is pulling away and, scoring 30, 40, 50 on teams, the defense is like, okay, we'll bend a little bit. We're going to give up 25, maybe 30, but we're not really going to give up that much more. And the defense, I think, to DeBoer's credit, he said that the defense is galvanized around Penix, and I think that really truly showed in the second half of the season. Because in the first half, it was like, okay, UW can maybe win a shootout, but the defense has got to have some life of some kind, because for a stretch there from UCLA up until about the Oregon game, it was kind of some dire straits.
Yeah, no, I felt, and you went to the Apple Cup, correct?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Tell me about kind of the atmosphere there. I'm gonna queue up the game. We're gonna see some highlights. Some UW.
What I never really truly thought about it. Somebody pointed out to me when I was in the press box. I won't say who, just for transparency's sake. I don't want to point out the person, but rivalry games usually, yes, they're at the end of the season, but they don't have to be. If you had the Apple Cup in September or early October as like the beginning of the conference season versus in November, when the games are played in Martin, you're going to get a full student section, you're going to get a full stadium, you're going to get a better atmosphere, kind of like what you had for College Game Day a few years ago when Oregon played Washington. The first time Game Day came to Pullman, and it was electric. Students aren't really back from Thanksgiving break when you're playing the game, even on Saturday. And so it's like you're never going to truly get the atmosphere that you want. And even the same thing could probably be said for Husky Stadium. You got kids on vacation, people, yeah, they're there, but it's not truly the same atmosphere that it should be. That said, when the game came on, it almost in a way kind of reflected the atmosphere, where it's like Penix was missing just a couple of yards shy, or a couple of yards long. He missed Tosh Davis. He had him for 6 against Shaw Wade, going to the far corner. He easily had him there, overthrew him.
Let's take a look. Let's take a look at that game. I don't think the rivalry games are there for they're not for the student section, by the way. These games are not for that. All right, so let me see if I can let me go back. Let me get back on my skills again. You can see the game, right? There we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let me get
defense right now. The Huskies best in the nation on third down. Caught by Polk. What a catch. To the end zone. Did he get in? Yes. Touchdown. Jalen Polk.
He was even like kind of with that throw where, yeah, Polk is able to extend his arms and make the catch, but it just seemed like early on, especially in the first quarter, especially Penix, was just a little slightly off. This is brutal right here. I mean, rewind that. Go back. How many missed? There's over under 5. I'm pretty sure it's over. How many missed tackles? How many guys? How many Huskies should have at least tried to make a tackle here on?
There we go.
On Cam Ward. I mean, this is always 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4, 5, maybe. You're probably missing a guy that you had 2 guys in the same Cook and Turner in the end zone, totally out of the way. So that's again what I was saying earlier, where the offense. This is where the second quarter started to get a little more dialed in, and Penix is back to his normal self, and it's like, okay, now the offense is clearly going to be able to hold on. It's a matter of can the defense. Again, we're talking a 4-point spread here. This is what was really costly. and all season for UW, it's been when they're there to get the tackle or they're there to get a sack, and then they don't. They've had so many of these broken plays where it's like, okay, you got the guys there, the pressure's there, and then secondary is kind of burned as a result.
Right. Okay, so take me through this play right here. I don't know if you can remember that. It was a 14-17 here.
Oh yeah, this one. How is that not a backwards pass? Again, to me that looks backwards, but
Clear lane to the end zone.
Rewind them. The fact that let's think about this here because this a bit of context for this play. So in a week or 2 weeks before this, both Jalen and Jalen McMillan, the receiver who threw the ball to Penix, and Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator, had pointed out that they have plenty of weird plays in the playbook that they haven't even shown yet. And this was one of them where Grubb said on Monday, after when they reviewed the tape and everything, we got to talk to him, that he never had a quarterback that ran one, threw one, and caught one. And this was supposed to be the one that broke that. When it was the first ever. They ruled it initially it was a touchdown pass from McMillan to Penix, but then they overturned it. Looked at the film and they said that it was a running play, so it was a 37.
Sorry, Lars, I got interrupted. Just hold that thought. Hey, D Money Scott, Mr. Scott Laigo is in the waiting room. Can you let him in? Yeah, there we go. Sorry.
I mean. It's like Stephen A here, where he was running to the Bristol to the Seaport Studios 20 minutes later to his own show.
I'd like to say something like that, cool, but I pretty much have to tell you it was a family deal. It was a family emergency.
Well,
got taken care of.
All right, okay, all right. Well, I hope all is well.
I'm just enjoying the illustrator here. The illustrator going to work. So I'm just sit back and learn from the coach.
Oh, please. You are the coach. You see, there we go. So glad to have you. I know, as usual, the Mazvita does the whole, hey, coach, can you come on at 12? I know that it's 11:10 right now.
My fault.
Thanks for making it happen. But no, I'm the one that, thank you for squeezing it. All right, we'll wrap up the Apple Cup a little bit here, but I really want to get Coach's take in terms of the landscape of college football. And yeah, we're going to go next for 2 hours, by the way. So, all right. And then, chime in anytime you want as well, Coach, because you actually have more experience than both Lars and I on this play. But we're just going with the Apple Cup. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Look at the throw back to Penix. Here goes Michael Penix on the run. Clear lane to the end zone, touchdown. Kalen DeBoer. I don't trust anybody.
Mark, good play.
Cam Ward.
Yeah.
He's got a receiver open again. It's Watson, touchdown. Penix is going to run, touchdown. Just sashays it.
Coach Laigo, just in terms of the game Gary Grubb had, can you just talk a little bit about that? I'm going to stop for a second, then I'll go back. But I'd love to hear Coach's perspective on just because he seemed like he was firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, one thing we can all take away from this season, the Pac-12's defenses, not so great. The offenses are really rolling and humming, so it's impressive. From that standpoint, I honestly didn't know if this Apple Cup was going to finish on Saturday night or Sunday morning because they didn't seem to want to stop each other. That was supposed to be statistically supposed to be the number one defense in the league, and they gave up 700 yards. It was crazy. It's and I get it. The RPO world that we're living in today, offenses are just that far. It's just crazy where we're at. But on the other end, Grubb's done a nice job of what he's put together. The irony of the whole story for me personally, from the Husky side, is I find it, and I think we talked about it even in the beginning of the year, is that Grubb and Coach DeBoer are doing it with not even their guys, and which is not a good light to what Coach Lake and Donovan had put together. that's the crazy part about the whole story. I mean, in itself, I mean, where were all these players when they had all these same guys and they did all the same things? And so that's it. And, and be honest with you, I mean, that I was looking up this morning, the best defense in the Pac-12, statistically now is Utah, and they're 30th in the country. I mean, it's, Pac-12 defenses, they got it. Here's the inside scoop for the Pac-12. If somebody comes up with a good defense, they're probably going to run away and they keep their offense and run away with the Pac-12. That's probably what's going to happen. But I don't know who's going to do that, who's going to commit to that. I mean, if you look at the crazy world we're in, I mean, offensive guys are going to all the great places, and that's where they're putting them on that side of the ball. So it's an ever-changing game.
Except your boy right up there, Lars Hanson, just released a story in CascadiaSports.net that who's visiting the UW there, Lars, the cornerback for Rainier Beach?
That would be Rainier Beach star cornerback Caleb Presley, who has been committed to the University of Oregon. This won't be his first time on campus this season, though. As I mentioned in the story, go click on it, CascadiaSports.net. But yeah, this will be, I think, his second or third time on campus. Second for sure. He was at the Michigan State game, and I believe so this will be his third game kind of involved with Washington, because he was at the Oregon-Washington game when Oregon lost to Washington, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin there. And then ever since then, it's kind of just been like, okay, well, this is currently a dead week, so coaches can't recruit. This Friday is the first weekend of recruiting that kicks off with the whole new calendar. So that's why they couldn't get him on campus last weekend, for example. Well, also because they're in Pullman, so it wouldn't matter either way. But this will kind of be like their beginning run to the early signing period in, December, second week of December, third week of December this year? Like 19th or 20th, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I have no clue. If you don't know, the only coach knows. I ain't got no clue.
I was going to say, a lot. He probably knows for a fact.
Attention. Yeah, he's got some notes that he's not going to, you know what I mean? Because he's got relatives and all that are doing their thing. So we're going to leave it at that. You know what? I'm going to make a stop. We're fine. We're fine with the Apple Cup. Forget it. I'd rather hear you all talk as opposed to spending the precious time we have left watching highlights, because I think the UW won that game. So a couple of things that came out today real quickly was in terms of the Pac-12 renewed 2 more years down there at, Allegiant Stadium. So that's one. And then, Coach, your take on the playoffs. I mean, the expansion, both of you, but I'll start with Coach. The expansion of the playoffs is going to happen.
Well, obviously they needed the last piece, which was, the holy graces of the Rose Bowl to get the last piece done. I'm for the playoff, so let's get this thing going. So I'm glad they could figure it out. I knew from day one they could keep the bowl games in this whole thing and make this thing happen. And I don't know why I get it. It's a nonprofit. A lot of people make a lot of money. Exactly. I mean, the Fiesta Bowl guy was making $1 million, when it got exposed. So, I mean, it's, I get that piece. But also, let's not be, beholden to ourselves. There's a couple of dollars to be made in a 12-team playoff from a bunch of programs. I mean, ESPN's going to be happy. Everybody's going to be happy. The leagues will be happy. So I'm excited for it. And, I know they put out scenarios every day on Twitter, what it would look like. So it just allows you to see the kind of the future where we could have this thing happen. And, there's a lot of big moves that are being made. Look at the Big Ten this week, and two different moves with Coach Rule and Coach Fickle. I mean, they've made their league better, getting 2, coaches in that league. So it's, we'll see what's going to happen and what's happened in the Pac-12 with Coach Shaw obviously leaving Stanford. Look at Lars. He's like, don't worry about those guys. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens, who the hires are in the league.
In prime time in Colorado, just watch for that. That's all I'm saying. Don't sleep on that. But
Go ahead, Lars. Go ahead.
To the question, Scott's point. I mean, I think Darren Shaw, obviously, I think it kind of was clear this was going to be his last season. He just kind of ran out of steam almost at Stanford, and they need kind of a rejuvenation down there anyways. But I think it's good for the Pac-12. You're always going to get one in, 6 automatic qualifiers. Likely this season is proven you're probably going to get at least 2. The question is, will you get 3? The question now is conferences, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC, and the ACC, they're competing for that 3rd spot. How many can we get in the SEC? Can we get 4? Can we get 4 of the 12 in there? Can we take a monopoly of that? For the Pac-12, can you get 3 in there? Can you, by some miracle, get 4 in there? This is where it's going to start to matter. Where how do you manage your out-of-conference slate? Because if all it matters is wins and maybe 1 quality win and 2 cupcake opponents in your non-conference, and then run your conference slate, you're not going to see as many big-time. You might see 1. I think you're going to see 1 a year, 1 for each school, 1 big out-of-conference game, and then the other 2 are going to be kind of walkovers, which is almost kind of what it's been already. But especially if we're just talking about, hey, we need 10 wins, win 2 losses. We're not sacrificing that for $500,000 to play Alabama just to lose. We want the win more than, hey, let's play Clemson or Tennessee and see if we can squeak out a win or hope. Because if you lose, now you're already setting yourself back even before you start conference play.
All right, we got to go, but I'll real quickly, you get to go yes or no, and then we'll come back on the next show and dive into it. Are we feeling better about the Pac-12 now than at the time it was announced that USC and UCLA were leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah, but with a lot of questions.
All right.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
That'd
be my caveat too.
Yeah, we'll leave it at but oh man, it's glad to have you both, Coach Scott Laigo, back. Oh man, feels so great back in the saddle. Lars Hanson, always giving the insightful scouting, things like that, and just bringing it. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming back on Seattle Sports Weekly. D-Money, thank you for what you do, and some of our listeners, thank you for listening and watching. I'm Mazvita Maraire, Seattle Sports, and Peter Hattrup, and Seattle Sports Weekly is done.